All right, Matt, we're getting set for UFC 250 coming at you live from the Vegas Apex facility. The UFC Apex facility, they spent $100 million on this facility, so you could pay a premium price for this card, headlined by Amanda Nunes, who's taking on Felicia Spencer, the Canadian. Matt, I want to remind you, I'm going to bring up a prop. We're Canadians, and I'm the prediction champion this year. But listen, when we combine on a pick, we've been right 72.5% of the time so far this year. If you want to go back and watch every single one of the videos like I have to get that number, you can. But this is a really interesting fight between Nunes and Felicia Spencer because for the longest time, Amanda Nunes has taken on some primary strikers, and she's beaten them. You look at Germaine Durandamy, you look at Chris Cyborg, you look at, not Ronda Rousey, but anybody else, she's beaten them with flying colors. And oh, by the way, she's been able to beat the grapplers with flying colors as well. Now, Felicia Spencer comes into this one, former Invicta featherweight champion, so a natural featherweight, which is something that we don't often get in the UFC. She comes in and beats Megan Anderson in a big win. She was a big underdog in that fight, gets a big win over Megan Anderson. And then who does she fight next, Matt?
Chris Cyborg.
Chris Cyborg. And she doesn't win the fight, but she grinds it out and ends up losing a decision. In her last one, yeah, she gets a win, but it was over Zara Farron, who is now 6-3 so far, and it wasn't a big test. I thought personally that Megan Anderson deserved a shot at the title. I know Felicia Spencer has a win over Megan Anderson, but Anderson was able to, bring together a couple of wins at least. Felicia Spencer off the win over Zara Farron gets to now take on the greatest female fighter of all time, who's beaten every single former and current bantamweight and featherweight champ in the UFC. Oh, by the way, Valentina Shevchenko, your flyweight champ, couldn't beat her either. So Amanda Nunes, to me, is a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. That's everybody. That's the Demetrius Johnsons, the John Jones, the George St. Pierre's. Amanda Nunes, for me, is that high up the list because you can't find a fighter right now from the time that she started this streak to now that can even come close to beating her. And yes, they tried to hype up moments where, oh, Germaine Durandamy's got her in a bad position. But no, she doesn't get into very many bad positions in any of her fights. Go back to the Cyborg fight. That really did cement her on top of that list. What do you make of this one? And what are Felicia Spencer's chances of getting a win here?
What are your chances of getting a win? Felicia Spencer has a very similar skill set to the person Nunes beat to win the title, Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate is a decent enough striker, but she's more volume-oriented, and her strikes set up her takedowns. And she's good on the ground, of course. Felicia Spencer does those exact same things, and Amanda Nunes was able to rock Miesha Tate, take her back, and choke her unconscious after breaking her nose. I don't see this fight going very different than that. I mean, if you look at what Felicia Spencer does well, even in her moments against Cyborg, she landed that good, kind of Superman elbow that was able to cut Cyborg. Other than that one strike, though, she just kind of got beat up on the feet for a lot of it. Unless she's able to take Amanda Nunes down, and she's not going to be able to take Amanda Nunes down because Nunes is a way better wrestler than her. And even if she gets into the ground, we were talking about this right before we started. Everyone's hyping it up like, oh, Felicia Spencer's this lights-out grappler. Out of the two, Amanda Nunes is the better grappler.
She's the first Canadian since 2017 to fight for a title. George St. Pierre being the last one to win the middleweight title over Michael Bisping, UFC 217. It's an interesting matchup. It really is. I'm glad that they at least have some names at women's featherweight because right now the UFC is doing this thing where they don't want to lose Felicia Spencer and they don't want to lose Megan Anderson to Bellator, so they're still putting on these fights. Now, the real moral behind this story, this is the fight that makes sense to put a ruby in that belt of Amanda Nunes' championship to say that she successfully defended at featherweight. And if they want to just say, hey, we dissolved the division, you could, in saying that Nunes actually defended the belt. In terms of the odds, I'm surprised that Nunes is just the minus 600 favorite with Felicia Spencer coming in a plus 400 underdog. On Tapology, I'm also surprised at 836 votes, 90% going with Nunes, 77% predicting a knockout. Do you see it a knockout kind of way?
Oh, 100%. I think she's going to be able to rock her. I do think Spencer's going to have moments where she's going to be able to hold Nunes up against the cage, kind of sap some of that energy. But when you look at the striking difference between these two, Felicia Spencer's not a good enough wrestler to get Nunes to the ground, to really implore what her skill set is as being this. And don't get this twisted. Felicia Spencer's still an amazing grappler. It's just Amanda Nunes is that good at everything. Like, you can't be the greatest of all time, arguably regardless of gender, and not have one of the most well-rounded skill sets.
It's like if you put Alir Latifi up against John Jones. That's
like,
kind of the
Felicia might
matchup.
have a moment or two, but for the most part, John Jones is good at everything. Same thing with Nunes. Nunes hits so jeez hard. It's insane. She can knock you out. She can choke you out. She can win by submission. She can win by decision, knockout. Like, Nunes doesn't have any massive hole in her game that would dictate that, okay, maybe Spencer, if she can get at least this position, she'll be able to do really well in. I don't even see moments in the fight where Spencer's going to have all that much success. So it's unfortunate because, again, I hate not cheering for Canadians. A little biased towards them. But no, Amanda Nunes is going to run over Felicia Spencer.
Maybe in some bizarro world, Felicia Spencer pulls a Matt Serra or pulls a Tristan Connolly, a Canadian there against Michelle Pereira, a big underdog upset. But I just don't see it here. I see Amanda Nunes getting another convincing win, and the future's probably at bantamweight from here on out. If she doesn't retire on top after getting a big win like that.
I mean, she could. Again, you said it. Like, people say she's the greatest women's fighter of all time. Honestly, she's one of the best just fighters ever. Like, regardless of combat sport, regardless of gender, regardless of weight class, like, Amanda Nunes needs to be on that Mount Rushmore. That's how good she is. And Felicia Spencer is going to have a great career, has had a good career. It's really hard to fight the GOAT in your fourth MMA fight, or in your fourth UFC fight. So it's an uphill battle, but it should be a decently entertaining fight for as long as it lasts.
We'll leave it there, Matt. Really interesting card. UFC 250, 2 minutes for the rest of the main card and the prelims. Make sure you check out the rest of those predictions. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We've got a lot of big stuff coming for 2020, and the ball's already rolling. So keep it locked in for that. And Matt, as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.